What if the greatest empires in history didn't collapse because of invading armies or corrupt rulers, but because something far more subtle slipped out of their control? Something invisible, ordinary, and taken for granted every single day. Money. We're taught to think of money as neutral, as a tool, as paper or numbers that simply make trade easier. But history tells a very different story. Again and again, empires reached unimaginable heights of power, only to unravel when their money stopped meaning what people believed it meant. Prices rose, trust evaporated, and suddenly laws, borders, and armies could no longer hold society together. So what really happens when an empire loses control of its money? And are we watching the same pattern unfold again today? Welcome to its financial Hyperinflation 2. To understand this, we need to strip away modern assumptions. In the ancient world, money wasn't abstract. It was physical, metal you could weigh in your hand. Gold, silver, bronze. Money was not just an economic tool. It was a declaration of authority. Every coin carried the image of a ruler, a state symbol, and an unspoken promise. This has value because power stands behind it. As long as people trusted that promise, trade functioned. Taxes were collected, and soldiers remained loyal. But that trust was delicate. Once it cracked, everything else followed. The Roman Empire offers one of the earliest and clearest examples. In its early days, Roman money was strong. Silver coins were nearly pure, widely accepted, and trusted across vast territories. A Roman denarius could buy real goods because it represented real value. But empires are expensive machines. Expansion demanded armies. Armies demanded pay. Roads, cities, and bureaucracy demanded constant funding. Eventually, taxes were no longer enough. That's when Roman leaders discovered a dangerous shortcut. Instead of raising taxes or reducing spending, they quietly reduced the silver content in their coins. The coins looked the same. They were stamped with the same imperial symbols, but they contained less precious metal. At first, the change was so small that few noticed. The empire appeared to gain wealth without creating it. This was one of history's earliest forms of monetary illusion. For a while, it seemed to work. The government paid its soldiers. Construction continued. Trade expanded. Rome grew richer on paper. But reality doesn't disappear, it only waits. As more debased coins entered circulation, merchants began raising prices to protect themselves. Soldiers demanded higher wages to keep up with rising costs. The state responded by debasing the currency even more. Each decision solved a short-term problem while worsening the long-term one. By the 3rd century, Roman silver coins were almost entirely copper with a thin silver coating. Money still circulated, but it no longer carried trust. People stopped saving. Trade increasingly shifted to barter. Taxes were demanded in grain and livestock instead of currency. Rome didn't run out of money. It ran out of belief. And once belief vanished, the system holding the empire together weakened from the inside. This pattern did not end with Rome. Centuries later, it appeared again in Weimar Germany after World War I. Crushed by debt and reparations, the German government turned to the printing press. At first, it felt like relief. Bills were paid. Workers were employed. The economy seemed to breathe again. But money creation outpaced real production. Prices rose, slowly at first, then faster, then uncontrollably. Workers were eventually paid twice a day because money lost value between morning and evening. People rushed to spend cash the moment they received it. Savings accumulated over a lifetime became worthless in months. Banknotes were used. It lost value today. This moment, when trust snaps, is the true breaking point for every monetary system. It's not a technical failure. It's a psychological one. And once it happens, the damage spreads far beyond economics. Savings vanish. The middle class collapses. Social resentment grows. People lose faith in institutions, leaders, and laws. In Weimar Germany, this environment of desperation and anger opened the door to extremism. Radical promises suddenly sounded reasonable. In Rome, Economic chaos weakened the state's ability to pay and control its armies. Loyalty fractured. Borders became porous. Political authority followed economic collapse, not the other way around. Every empire tries to fix the problem once it becomes obvious, and almost every fix fails. Rome imposed price controls, forcing merchants to sell at government-mandated rates. The result was shortages and black markets. Weimar Germany printed higher denomination notes, adding zeros as inflation accelerated. Other states froze wages, banned hoarding, or punished speculators. None of these restored trust, because trust cannot be commanded. Money only works when people believe restraint exists somewhere in the system. When that belief dies, laws lose power. Now, pause and look at the modern world. Governments run deficits measured in trillions. Central banks create money, digitally at unprecedented speed. Debt levels dwarf anything past empires ever carried. We're told this is safe, that technology, data, and expert management make this era different. History has heard that claim many times before. Digital money removes friction. There's no metal to mine, no press to slow down. Krizischen ist Instand. While modern economies are more complex, human behavior hasn't changed. When people sense money losing value, they change how they act. Spending accelerates. Saving feels pointless. Speculation replaces productivity. Asset bubbles form not because people are greedy, but because they're trying to outrun depreciation. Empires rarely collapse overnight. They drift. The currency weakens. Trust thins. Stability feels normal, until suddenly it doesn't. Then the decline looks obvious in hindsight, even though it was ignored for years. Across centuries and continents, the sequence repeats with eerie consistency. Monetary expansion hides deeper problems. Trust erodes slowly. Inflation exposes the illusion. Social cohesion fractures. Power shifts often, violently. Names change. Systems change. Technology changes. But the pattern remains. There are 3 lessons history keeps offering, whether we listen or not. First, money is not just economic. It's psychological. Once trust is gone, no amount of numbers can restore it. Second, monetary collapse rarely announces itself with sirens. It whispers through rising prices, normalized debt, and confident reassurances that nothing is wrong. Third, empires don't lose control of money by accident. They choose short-term survival over long-term stability again and again. History doesn't predict the future, but it exposes illusions. Every empire believed it was smarter, more advanced, more protected than those before it. None were. So the real question isn't whether money can fail. It's whether the warning signs are recognized in time, or whether the cycle repeats once more. If you want more deep, history-based stories about money, power, and the hidden forces shaping our world, subscribe to the channel. Because the past doesn't disappear. It waits.